Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, February 27th, 2026. I'm Ed Kabik, November 2 Echo Charlie. In the log this week, we've got a contest spotlight for CQ Worldwide's 160-meter contest. We'll also be doing a DXpedition spotlight of the J51 Alpha Guinea-Bissau DXpedition. Also, we'll get an update on Bouvet Island 3Y0K DXpedition. We'll also be looking at the Desecheo Island KP5 NP3VI DXpedition that's going to be QRT on March 3rd. Also, HamClock gets a new community backend. We'll talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about upcoming contests, and also look at some interesting online radio content. As always, the links to all reference content can be found in the show notes or at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. This weekend brings the latest edition of the CQ Worldwide 160-meter contest on SSB. The contest starts at 2200 UTC on Friday, February 27th. That is 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, and ends at 2200 UTC on Sunday, March 1st. That's 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. The contest is all about having amateurs from around the world make as many contacts with the U.S. states, Canadian provinces, and countries as possible using the 160-meter band. For single operator assisted stations only, operators are able to use one remote receiver within 100 kilometers of the main transmitter if conditions like local noise require. This includes WebSDRs, but they must be within the 100 kilometer limit. The unassisted entries may not use a remote receiver. Single operator stations can work as much as 30 hours of the 48-hour period. Operating categories include single operator with no QSO finding assistance allowed for high power up to 1500 watts of power, low power up to 100 watts of power, and QRP up to 5 watts of power. There is also the single operator assisted categories, high power, low power, and QRP, with spotting assistance allowed, and the remote receiver is permitted within 100 kilometers of the station. The exchange is RST, state for U.S., province for Canada, or CQ zone for DX. So for me in Virginia, my exchange would be 59 Victor Alpha. Multipliers of the 48 contiguous U.S. states plus D.C., the 14 Canadian provinces, VO1 and VO2 count as 2 provinces, and DXCC countries, including WAE countries. Points are awarded as 2 for QSOs in one zone country, 5 points for other countries on the same continent, and 10 points for contacts on other continents. Maritime mobile counts for 5 points, but no multiplier. Logs must be submitted by March 6, 2026 at 2200 UTC. This is a great opportunity to make a lot of contacts on the top band. Good luck. The J51A DXpedition to Bijagos Archipelago in Guinea-Bissau has been very active on the bands in the last week. Your author was able to work them on 15, 17, and 30 meters CW with a strong signal into the East Coast. Well, yesterday, the team reported that they had logged 61,300 QSOs in 69 hours of operation. The operators include several members from the Bavarian Contest Club. They are currently scheduled to operate until March 15th. Guinea-Bissau is a country on the west coast of Africa with a population of about 2 million people. It's currently listed as number 84 on the Club Log Most Wanted list. For more information about the DXpedition, with photos, live streams, log searches, and team updates, visit their QRZ page or the links in the show notes. And look for them on the bands. Good luck. The highly anticipated 3Y0K DXpedition to Bouvet Island departed from Cape Town, South Africa in the last week and has been steadily making its way to Bouvet. On February 25th, the team provided an update saying that the boat was in an area of bad weather, which was slowing down their journey. They slowed their speed for safety since they would not be missing any weather windows for landing. They were about 140 miles from the island when they posted on the 25th, and they believe that their ETA will be Friday the 27th around 6 p.m. local time. That's noon Eastern time. The 3Y0K DXpedition is one of the most expensive and logistically complicated in history, with a reported budget of around $1.7 million. The plan is to have a 3-week DXpedition, although with extreme weather on Bouvet, they will be dependent on weather windows to get to the island via their helicopter. The 3Y0K team has mentioned that they have received reports of individuals pirating the call sign on the air, and they asked it should not work those pirates, and they do say that there will be official communications from the pilots or a team leader when the team is operational. Links with more information can be found at links in the show notes. Good luck. The KP5/NP3VI Desecheo DXpedition has had a very successful and extended run with its remote operations, with the total number of QSOs exceeding 100,000 as we went to press. Sadly, all good things must come to an end, and this DXpedition is no exception. They are scheduled to be QRT on March 3rd, 2026. If you haven't gotten Desecheo in your logs, you still have time, but make sure to act fast. For more information, including schedule plans and log searching, visit Desecheo2026.com/KP5. Good luck. The announcement that the popular HamClock software would stop working with the passing of its creator, Elwood Downey, WB0OEW, set the community into action to provide alternatives to the amateur radio community. This week, the team at HamClock.com announced that they have created a backend server that allows HamClock to continue to function. They have instructions on their site for how to modify your installation to have it work with their backend. The site says that they are already serving over 2,700 HamClock installations. For more information, visit HamClock.com. And now let's take a quick look at MVARC Nets on the air. We have our 2-meter FM net on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater. That is immediately followed by the 2-meter digital net on Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM. We also have the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable on Saturday and Sundays at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz CW, and that's followed by the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. And now let's take a look at what is happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air this week. Stations on the air include Ethiopia, Bouvet Island, hopefully, Guinea-Bissau, Gambia, Palau, Anguilla, Bangladesh, Desecheo Island, Colombia, and Solomon Islands. A calendar of DXpeditions can be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now it's time for a solar activity update as we go to press. The Solar Flux Index, or SFI, was 130 and the estimated sunspot number was 43, with 3 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has increased. Solar activity has been at low levels in the last 24 hours. The geomagnetic field has been at quiet to active levels, and the KP index reached 4 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 613 kilometers a second. Solar activity is predicted to be at low levels with a chance of M-class flares today through Sunday. The geomagnetic field is forecast to be at quiet to unsettled levels today and Saturday, and at unsettled to active levels on Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is at 1% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible in the near term, with a predicted probability of 25% today through Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely, with a 5% chance predicted today through Sunday. It remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see delayer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, check out the NOAA DREP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from RadioSonde data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. This weekend brings the CQ Worldwide 160-meter contest on single sideband that we talked about earlier. Also, the UBA DX contest on CW, the South Carolina QSO Party, the North Carolina QSO Party, the North American QSO Party on RTTY, the NA Collegiate Championship on RTTY, the UBA Spring Contest on 2 meters, the NSARA Contest, the SARL HamNet 40-meter Simulated Emergency Contest, and the WAB 3.5 megahertz phone contest. As always, the K1USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And finally, let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. As always, all the links we're about to discuss are in the show notes or at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. Stuart VE9CF talks about the scheduled shutdown of Canadian weather radio. Tim K50HY builds and tests a 300-ohm ladder line fed doublet. Mike K at MRD looks at the new community backend for HamClock and shows you how to switch. Walt K4OGO takes us behind the scenes at Shack Day in Chesapeake, Virginia. Dougbo KD7DUG does 2 meters CW for soda. Jason KM4ACK shows his Hambention Hall. Mort G4BSK shows us how he builds his 3D printed microphones. Bob, WV1W, takes a look at the Daewoo VK6 paddles. Lewis, M3HHY, listens in to pirates jamming Russian military signals. Forrest, KI7QCF, talks about what QRP means to him. Yuri, UT4LW, shows his 2B SIQ run for ARL DXCW. Mike K at MRD takes us along to the Greater Houston Hamfest. Liddy, KQ3Q, builds a 17.5 antenna and gets it on the air for POTA. Dr. Tamitha Skove, WX6SWW, talks about the first spotless sun in years. Steve, KM9G, takes a look at a portable solar power bank for portable operations. Forrest, KI7QCF, shows part of his ARL DXCW run. Colin, MM0OPX, tells you why you should be using the 10-meter band right now. Mark, KD7DTS, takes us aboard the Battleship Iowa to see the radio facilities. Peter, VK3YE, shows us what you can do with 10 meters of wire to get on the air. Mike KNRD activates POTA with Caitlin, K8FAE. Matt, M0DQW, takes a look at FT2 for digital communications. And finally, Steve, KM9G, shows us how he uses an inexpensive Z-Match antenna tuner. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2, Echo Charlie. Thanks, as always, for joining us. I hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.